Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Vocal Sound Healing Podcast. My name is Alexandra Rigazzi-Tarling. I'm a vocal sound healing practitioner and trainer. I'm a vocal coach and vocal technician, and I've worked with voice for well over 25 years. As a former opera singer, I'm now working and putting all of my energy into helping others develop their voice for their own healing and for their own well-being. So whether you're coming for a simple singing lesson, a technical voice session, a healing voice session, a vocal sound healing session, a voice reconnection session, whatever it might be, it's all about empowering you to use your own voice for your energy, for your well-being, and for all the wonderful things that it can help us with. So it seemed like a really good idea today to make this episode all about the benefits of using your voice, or at least the well-being benefits of using your voice, and to try to convince you to start a little daily vocal sound healing practice for yourself. So I've got some information for you. I'm actually going to share my screen with you today. So if you're just listening to this, it's fine because everything that I'm going to say is on the screen. But if you're more of a visual person and you want to see some of the references, perhaps to the papers that I'm going to talk about, then you've got that on the screen. So just bear with me a second while I share my screen and we'll get started. So, setting it up. 5 seriously healthy reasons to start a daily vocal sound healing practice. And that's what it's all about, practice. So, why is practice important? Why is a vocal sound healing practice important? Why is any well-being practice important? Because a well-being practice is like going to the gym. So when you go to the gym, you train your muscles, your nerves, the responses to that, your breath, your stamina, all of those things. And it's exactly the same with well-being. We can't expect to regulate our nervous system, to regulate our response to stress if we don't practice, if we're not aware. So this is about vocal sound healing, but I would say that first of all, about all well-being practice, it has to be practice. There is a discipline to being well. And that's first. And we're not even onto the points yet. We're not even onto the 5 reasons, but I just have to say that first of all, it's about empowering yourself, creating that discipline, showing up for yourself every day, or every other day, setting that goal, maybe 3 times a week, whatever it is, but showing up for yourself. And without going off on a tangent at this point, even just showing up for yourself, being there, empowering yourself, that self-agency, that is already proven to help your well-being. The fact that you even show up, the fact that you feel empowered, that is already helping you to be well. And we know about that as well. There's papers that have been written on that already. So that's number 1, yet we're not even yet there yet for the first 5 things. So that's still something to consider. Why a vocal sound healing practice? Why is it important? Because when you work with your voice, your authentic voice, you're getting to know you. We're not going to be talking here about working in a genre. So we're not talking about you training your voice in opera or in contemporary or in jazz. We're just talking about the sound that comes when you hum, to start with. If you're in any doubt about your authentic voice, just hum. And not with this feeling of having to perform or make it loud or make it better than anyone else, just a little hum. That is your authentic voice. And as you develop that, as you work with that hum, as you work with simple vowel sounds for vocal toning, as you take those into some simple chants and so on, you're getting to know a huge part of yourself. We talk, we sound every day. Yet most of us are afraid of sounding in public, of using our voice in public. There's some blockage there, not feeling good enough, not feeling worth it. So what's that all about? And we only get to explore that when we can use our voice without judgment, take ourselves away, do this practice. Perhaps if you're worried about other people hearing you and being critical, just take yourself away from others. It's wonderful if you have an opportunity to sound in a group. Don't get me wrong, a safely held group. But to start with, if that's too much, just start with gentle humming away from others. Get to know that vibration, get to know that sound that is you. And I've said here, why is that vocal sound healing practice important? Because if you can learn to love that sound, that vibration, you are really learning to love yourself. You're learning to love that part of you that perhaps has been neglected, that perhaps has been put down, that perhaps hasn't been heard. And if you want other people to be in acceptance of your sound, then you need to be in acceptance of your sound. You need to love your sound, love everything about you. And your sound is one of the most important parts of you. Imagine if you woke up tomorrow and you couldn't speak, you couldn't sound. It would be like a whole part of you was missing. So let's start looking at that part of you. Let's start working with that part of you. And let's see what happens. And in doing that, I've put here, you strengthen your relationship with your inner world, your inner voice. And think about that inner world, that inner voice. You know, a lot of us have been told you should do this, you should do that, you should go here, you should go there, you should do that as your job. All of those things in life, we've been conditioned. What about if you could start listening to your own heart, your own voice, for your own life and what you do? And so then thinking about your voice, that inner voice, as your internal sat-nav of life. And we often have this inner dialogue in our head, but is that truly our inner voice? That critic, that inner critic, is that really you? Whose voice is that? When we start to work with our inner world, we start to go into different layers of our being. And that inner guidance, that inner voice, is usually a very subtle voice, a subtle sound. It's not that dialogue that plays away on a daily basis. Anyway, more about that in later episodes. But for now, let's just focus in, on top of those things I've just mentioned, on why vocal sound healing practice is a really healthy thing to do. So first of all, number one, we're focusing on our breath through voice. So we know that our breath is the key to so many aspects of our well-being. That goes without saying. There's loads of focus on breath. There's loads of papers on breath. There's loads of stuff been written on breath. So it has to be said, without breath, there is no voice. We need the breath. It's a physical thing. It comes through the vocal folds vibrate, and that creates sound. So the breath is fundamental to sound, but the sound brings other things. So when we focus on our breath through voice, things like vocal toning, humming, this deepens our breath. It encourages a lengthening, an elongation of our breath. And that in itself helps us slow our breath rate down. We start to focus on the exhalation. So, you know, if you've had a shock or you've been upset and someone says to you, deep breaths. And actually what people tend to do is focus on the inhale. They're filling up the lungs with more air when they haven't actually released the air that's already in the lungs. So it is this focus on the exhalation. It's breathing out what's in the lungs so that then you can get the diaphragm to reset, expand into the body, take the air in again. So when we're vocal toning or we're humming, we're focusing on exhalation. And this immediately starts to help us slow the breath rate down. And there is lots of information about breath, ancient concepts, yogic practices of deep, slow breathing, for example. We're not new to this idea that deep breathing helps with lots of well-being benefits, helps slow the heart rate and so on. And here, if you can see the slide, I've put studies show that a slower breath rate of 6 breaths per minute is linked with relaxation. That was Van Diest and colleagues in 2014. And a lowering of the blood pressure and heart rate. So Park and colleagues in 2014 and Pramanik in 2010 did studies on that. And we know that it's linked with relaxation, lowering of blood pressure and heart rate. So when you're doing your vocal toning and you're humming just for a few minutes, you are calming that rate of breath, you are calming your heart rate, and that has an effect on your blood pressure. But not only that, we know, don't we, if we're stressed and we can just take a minute just to do a few deep breaths or a few tones, it helps the mind as well. So when we start to engage the diaphragm, engage the vocal folds, we start to work with the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve innervates through the larynx, the vocal folds, the pharynx. It wanders around the body, but it also innervates the diaphragm. So when we're working with diaphragmatic breathing and we're adding voice, vocal cord function, we are stimulating the vagus nerve. And what this does is it helps to shift our state of consciousness and often puts us into more of an alpha state, so a little bit of a daydreaming state where perhaps things slow down and we can enter into a rest and digest mode. So rather than being always in stress mode, which so many people are nowadays, we can't digest our food in stress mode. We can't relax and focus on bodily processes in stress mode. So no wonder there are so many illnesses associated with stress. As soon as we start to work with the vagus nerve and vibrate and stimulate the vagus nerve, it helps our body regulate and switch into parasympathetic nervous system, into rest and digest. So when we can do that, we are regulating the nervous system, and the more we can do that, particularly when we're stressed, we're teaching our bodies to go into a state of relaxation. We have to actually have the tools to do it. It should happen on its own, but if we're suffering from dysregulation, it's not going to happen on its own. It needs our support, it needs the practice. So it's going back to what I said, it's a well-being practice. And ideally you'd have this practice a few times a week, and then when you're out working and doing all the things you do, when you feel yourself getting into a stress situation, more than is required, because remember, stress is there to help us for certain things, that's okay. But it's coming out of the stress and going back into regulation. So some deep breathing, some humming, just simple practices to bring you back into that window of tolerance, into that place where your nervous system can function in a balanced way. We want to release a little bit of stress when we need it and switch it off when we don't. So breathing is key. And when we add the voice, we get a double whammy. We're getting all the benefits of the breath, the slower breath rate, and we're getting all the benefits of the voice. And we're going to go a little bit more into that now. So, the ancient yogic concept of mastering the breath helps us master the mind, literally. Because when we switch into a state of regulation, the mind calms down. We start to work with the body. The mind stops racing. Everything starts to come back into a rhythm where we can function from a balanced place. And the wonderful thing about all this is that you don't have to be running on a treadmill. You can be sitting down and you can be working with this deepened breath, working with your voice, and you're actually getting a workout for the diaphragm, for the respiratory system. So, actually practicing vocal toning, vocal sounding on a regular basis is giving you a physical workout as well as all of the nervous system benefits and building your vagal tone and so on. So breath is number one. And then number two, vocal toning encourages a flow state. And I'm particularly interested in this. Some of you might know that I finished a master's in psychology, specialising in mental health and wellbeing at the beginning of the year. And my master's paper was all about looking to see if vocal toning actually could instigate a flow state and comparing that with breath. So this is something that I'm really interested in. And we're just looking at the tip of the iceberg here, but it's something to consider because it's something that you're going to be practicing if you're working with this every day. So, Hungarian-American psychologist Csikszentmihalyi, hopefully I've pronounced that correctly, recognised the concept of flow state, and he wrote so many papers and so much on this flow state. So what he termed as a flow state was to be so consumed in a task that all mental processes are forced into the present moment. So you're really engaged and in that moment, almost like a concept of mindfulness, where we're so fully in the present moment engaged that we're not thinking about all the other things that are stressing us out. We're in that process, and that could be anything. It could be, something, a hobby that you're doing, your work, driving the car, it could be anything. It's a task. And there are various conditions with the task, but I'm not going to go into that now. Just to look at a flow state where we're fully involved in doing something brings on a state of mindfulness, and this helps us change our brain state again. So if we're super stressed but we start getting involved in a task, we actually start to regulate. We start to come into a state of balance. And psychologist Martin Seligman, who you probably know is the father of positive psychology, or the positive psychology movement, his PERMA theory of well-being proposes that the E in PERMA is the state of engagement, and that actually engagement in a task is a key aspect of well-being. So when we are practicing our vocal toning, our mantra, our chants, whatever it might be, we are becoming involved in that task naturally. So we start our breath, we start our humming, perhaps we practice 5-10 minutes of humming, vocal toning. We're already engaging in a task for our well-being. So we have our agency there, we have our empowerment there, we're already engaging in it. But in addition, and this is really exciting, studies by Dr. Shelley Snow and colleagues showed that vocal toning in itself, just as a task, can bring about a flow state. So what that means is we're engaging in the task which can bring about the flow state, but actually the voice in itself, the chanting, the toning, can help us enter into that flow state anyway. And that flow state is a key part of well-being. It's a key part of us being in that state where we engaged but balanced, where the mind fully focuses on the task at hand and can let go of all the other things that might be concerning us. So a simple task, really any task, can help us with that flow state. But looking at vocal toning, it's encouraging the flow state in itself. So vocal toning is incredibly simple. Vocal toning, it's enough to hum, to literally breathe again and hum. And do that for the next 5 minutes and see how you feel. So flow state, being able to enter into that engaged state just by simple vocal toning. 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, maybe 10 minutes 3 times a week. But either way, a practice, a regular practice to support your mind to go to that state. And so, number 3, seriously healthy reasons to practice vocal sound healing every day. So, number 3 is increased nitric oxide production. Now, I'm going to talk very briefly about nitric oxide, very briefly. You can go off and do your own research on nitric oxide. But just to say that nitric oxide is a molecule, actually a very, very small molecule, fundamental to all life. And it's directly related to the immune system support and optimal function of the immune system and life, a function of the body in general, but also nervous system regulation. So when we get really stressed, we actually we hinder the production of nitric oxide in the body. When we are producing nitric oxide at a healthy rate, it's called puffing. The nitric oxide literally puffs into the system from the cells. This causes vasodilation, which is a widening of our blood vessels. And so this increases blood flow and it decreases blood pressure. And we know that humming can produce nitric oxides. So Swedish researchers back in 2002, and I believe there's more recent research on this now, they showed that humming triggered the release of nitric oxide in the nose. So it was localized to the nose, that's where the vibration was, and that's where the nitric oxide was being produced. But we know that when we hum and when we sound, our whole body vibrates. And we also know as vocal sound healers, and Jonathan Goldman proposes this as well, that through focused intention, and we know that intention is a very important part of vocal sound healing, we can send vocal vibration around our body to increase the production of nitric oxide. Now, in Jonathan and Andy Goldman's book, The Humming Effect, Sound Healing for Health and Happiness, he presents this as a hypothesis. He proposes that through focused intention, we can send vocal vibration around the body to increase the production of nitric oxide. And if you have trained in vocal sound healing with me, you will know that we work on placing our consciousness around our body and sounding from those areas. Now, I haven't measured the production of nitric oxide around the different areas. I'm taking it from these Swedish researchers that the nitric oxide has been produced. And also John Beaulieu did a lot of research with cells and nitric oxide. So his book, Human Tuning, Sound Healing with Tuning Forks, that talks a lot about it as well. So there's lots of research there, and that's fairly old now, but there are more people looking into this. We know that we can use our intention to place consciousness around our body and vibrate sound around our body. I do it with people all the time. Part of our training, I do it with clients, part of meditation, part of working with vocal sound healing and the body. So just that vibration alone, we are producing nitric oxide. But not just that. We know, as we've said, that flow state is induced when we vocal tone. We know that the deep breathing helps nervous system regulation. We know that humming stimulates the vagus nerve. So there are a lot of information there to show that this vibration around the body is present. We're vibrating the vagus nerve. We know that that happens. That's not just about the nose. That's the nerve itself, where it runs through the larynx, the pharynx, the diaphragm, and so on. So even without the research, there's a very good chance that nitric oxide production is happening on a greater level, just from what we know from all of the other aspects of vibrating the body with our voice. And of course, we'll talk about intention as we go through this podcast. It's always going to come up. Intention is an important part of vocal sound healing. Sending that sound around the body, sending your intention to an area that you want to work with, that you want to vibrate, where you want to move energy. And this is coming back to what we said at the beginning about getting to know our inner world, getting to work with ourselves first. But either way, you can rest assured that when you start your practice of humming, your body is releasing nitric oxide, even if only in the nose at the moment. The proven bit in the nose. I think it's going to be a lot more than that. So that's number 3, increased nitric oxide production. And do have a look at John Beaulieu's Human Tuning, because he shows this with the use of the Body Tuner C&G tuning forks. John Beaulieu is the creator of the Biosonics tuning forks that we use in our vocal sound healing training. And it's a fascinating book, but he has also worked with the nitric oxide and tuning forks. And so number 4, working with a vocal sound healing practice, a daily practice, offers you the opportunity to give yourself an internal sonic massage. Now we know, if we go to see a massage therapist, that the therapist will work on the external body, massaging legs and arms and back and so on. And we know that affects our muscles on the inside, our blood, our circulation, all of those things. When you work with your voice, you're working from the inside out to massage your cells and move energy in the body. So just vibrating your body with sound. If I sound a nice I can feel my chest vibrating. I can feel my upper back vibrating. If I change the vowel and send that all the way down into my pelvis, I can feel my central line vibrating. So whether you can feel it or not, I'm used to doing it. I do it every day. But whether you're used to it or not, know that your voice is vibrating your body from the inside out. It is massaging all of your cells. It is moving energy in your body. Sound is energy. Your body is energy. Remember, we talked in episode 1 about the body being matter, which is just made up of lots and lots and lots and lots of small particles and atoms. You are energy, and your sound is moving your energy. And we know that sound healing needs that intention, so we can work very specifically to work to massage aspects of our body with our sound. But just sounding in itself, that vibration, that frequency, will give you that movement in your body. So the frequency of our sound creates and changes form in our material makeup. It actually moves matter. And you've only got to look at the study of cymatics. So if you, there's so many videos on YouTube now, and you see people putting matter, like sand, and it's matter in this case, on a vibrational plate, and then they change the frequency of the vibration of the plate, and the sand starts to reorganize itself into all of these incredible mandalas. This is not new information. I mean, this has been, the ancients knew all this stuff. We're just replicating it here. But we know that certain frequencies will create certain forms in matter. You could also put your voice to a cymoscope and it will show you the same formations of the frequency in form on the screen. You might not have a cymoscope at your disposal, but there are videos on YouTube, for example, people doing that. So we know that frequency creates form. We know that it shifts and moves matter. So when you are doing your vocal sound healing practice with your simple humming, your simple vowel sounds, you are actually creating forms in your body. And if you're sounding at certain frequencies, and this is replicated all the time, the same forms are coming from the same frequencies. So pick a form that you like, have a look on YouTube, pick a form, pick a frequency, sing that sound, that frequency, and that's what you're creating in your body and in the energy around your body. So it's taking us way out of our superficial understanding of the world around us. We're really looking here on how this is affecting us on an energetic level. But remember that energy is form. You are energy, but you are form. You are matter. And your voice will affect that. And I wanted to just touch on Fabien Maman, who did these experiments 40 odd years ago now. But he worked with the original Chilean photography, where you could photograph, it's 3D aura imaging equipment, but it's called Chilean photography, the original. And he photographed the energy around cells, around blood cells. And he did some very interesting work here. But one of the things I want to draw on just for this podcast in particular is that he found that cells where people use their own voice on their own blood cells, so sounded tone to their own blood cells, when he photographed those cells, those were the ones that had the most powerful effect. The light around the cells was greater, was more expanded, was more colourful. Everything about using your own voice on the cell showed that it was the most positive. So even just drawing on that, it's not about sounding good, sounding like your favourite pop singer, trying to have whatever on earth means a nice voice in the context of vocal sound healing, because quite frankly, in the context of vocal sound healing, we're looking at the voice as frequency. Yes, we want to create a purer tone in the sense that we want harmonics to be audible. I don't mean audible as in sounding actual harmonics. I mean as in a rich sound in pure tone. We know harmonics are present when the sound is rich, so we're trying to encourage someone therefore to connect with their breath, to expand their body, to get the voice resonating. That's what I mean there by harmonics. But we know that in vocal sound healing, we're just working with that frequency, and your frequency, your sound is the most healing for you. You have everything you need within you, your voice, your sound, to create an environment of positivity, of well-being for yourself. And of course, back to the obvious aspects, when you sound, back to our breath, you're increasing oxygen into your body. You're increasing your circulation via the vibration of your sound. Just like if you went and had physical massage, it would work on your circulation, your lymph, all of these things. You're oxygenating your cells. That's happening when you're sounding. So, last but not least, number 5. We know that when we use our voice, it helps us to release feel-good hormones in our system. So, if you belong to a local choir or, somewhere where you enjoy singing, it feels good. But we're not even talking about singing. And you can sing as part of vocal sound healing as much as you want. But for those people out there that get really hung up on the words singing and voice and that they can't sing, it's all about sounding. So research shows that singing and sounding, so not just sing, it's not about being able to sing in tune, it's about using your voice. That this can assist with releasing feel-good endorphins, can change neurotransmitters and hormones, including oxytocin. So oxytocin is that love bonding hormone. And immunoglobulin, it's quite hard to say, immunoglobulin A, which enhances feelings of happiness and strengthens the immune system. So we know that we release endorphins and oxytocin and all these hormones into the system, which helps us feel good. It helps us feel happy, and it therefore helps us strengthen our immune system. Hopper and colleagues in 2016 showed that it can help with pain management. And our lovely Dr. Gemma Perry in Australia and her colleagues in 2023 showed that when practicing sounding in a group, and Dr. Perry focuses on mantra in particular, that this can help humans feel more connected to each other. And Hendry and colleagues in 2022 worked with that concept as well. So there are so many feel-good aspects just from sounding alone. But if you decide that you want to seek out a group to help boost your practice, perhaps a vocal sound healing group, a toning circle, a mantra circle, then this can really give you something to look forward to, working with others, bonding with others, feeling more connected, the human need to belong, to feel that you belong into a group. And this then helps with mental health and well-being on a whole other level. So even just with these 5 aspects of practicing vocal sound healing, of building that practice, it's brought in, there's so much to it. I could probably sit here all day and talk about this because there are so many rabbit holes to go down from this. But at the bottom of it all, it's stemming from your vocal sound, your willingness to use your sound for your healing. So actually getting over any blocks that you have in your mind that you can't sing, that you can't sound. Just start with a simple hum. 5 minutes a day. Take yourself away. Do it in the shower if you want to. Do it wherever you want. But just gentle humming. Just get that sound moving. And then you might open it into an ah, or an ooh, or just a blur, whatever. Doesn't matter. The most important thing is you're getting to know your voice. Ideally, you do this sitting quietly somewhere where you're not going to be disturbed, unless you're working in a group, of course, but where you can just explore what comes as a result of that. Explore the feelings that come as a result of that. Hopefully a quietening, hopefully a centering of yourself. But if you find your mind fills with a million things when you start to do this, don't worry. If we haven't had the opportunity to process energy, process our thoughts, process all the stuff that we are exposed to on a daily basis, if you haven't done that for years and years and years, or perhaps you've never done that, your mind begins to process and release all the stuff that's stored with you. So just stick with it. Focus on the breath, focus on the hum, just focus on staying centered as much as you can. And let your mind do what it needs to do. If you find meditation or you're quietening, triggering, sit with your eyes open. Just sit with your eyes open, stare out the window, stare at a lovely picture. It doesn't matter. Sit with your eyes open and sound gently, just hum. You don't have to go into that inner world. You can stay fully present in the outer world and it will still have the same effect. And if you feel that, not actually doing something is triggering for you in whichever way, it's okay, because when you're sounding, you are doing something. You have something to do. So, folks, it'd be great to hear if any of you have been practicing vocal sound healing, vocal toning and so on. Let me know, put it in the comments. And if you haven't, then now's the time. Now is the time. Don't let yourself get stressed and overwhelmed. Just bring it back to a simple hum. You can do it anywhere. Simple hum. When you're feeling stressed, keep your eyes open. If you have to, it's fine. I'm not going to say do it when you're driving the car, just for safety, or operating heavy machinery, all of that. Stop doing that first and then have a hum. But let's say you're walking down the street, you could be humming. If you're walking to a job interview and you're a bit stressed, hum. If you're somewhere at work, stress is getting to you, just gentle hum. Take yourself into the loo, hum. That's all it takes. So thank you very much for joining me today. It's always a pleasure to be here talking about vocal sound healing. I hope this episode has been useful for you and I look forward to seeing you next week. Don't forget to like, subscribe on YouTube and Spotify so you get an alert when new episodes are out. Take care for now and see you next time. Bye.